All right, what's going on YouTube? I'm here with another video, and this is a message to all the metaphysicists out there. Metaphysics is a branch of, I think it actually goes beyond philosophy. It incorporates philosophy, but it also incorporates like theology. It does what it can to incorporate like the hard sciences, and it also incorporates some degree of spirituality, essentially, although that's a very loose term. But the idea is we are trying to like understand reality beyond our comprehension of it, hence meta, the term meta, very fascinating field. And this is where I'm going to share another hypothesis. And the subject is pleasure versus pain. Now, most of the time, people talk about it in the physical sense. When people talk about pleasure and pain, they're only talking about it physically, right? Like usually, that's how most people think about it, is physically, right? Physical pleasure would be something like, sex, right? And then pain, and then like your actual pain would be like bodily injury, right? But I'm not going to actually just talk about it in just these two ways. In fact, the two we'll say dimensions, if you want to use that term, that I want to address is pretty much it could be more than one, but the two that I want to talk about is actually emotional. So we're basically, we're not going to just talk about it physically, okay? Although there will be some elements incorporated. I think what I'm really trying to talk about it is like emotional would be one domain, right? Emotions is one domain. I would say physical would be another domain, right? So that's still a common one. And then perhaps I think the third one that I can think of, it would be your spirit, the domain of your spirit. Right, we'll put that in yellow. And this is where my hypothesis is. I think there's a way to convert each one into the other. Okay, so I'm going to say, I guess I'll put pain in red. I don't know what the best colors are to, I think I'm going to put, I'm not sure what color to put in, but for pleasure, I think it's pretty obvious. We're going to put this in pink. All right, so PL for short. And then I think for like pain, emotional pain, I'm just gonna put it in purple. Okay. Now this is what I'm thinking. That with emotional pain, if you're someone who was born with emotional pleasure, right? You're someone who, you started off with emotional pleasure. Right? You start off with emotional pleasure, or I guess not even just emotional. Just emotional. It doesn't even have to be like sex, right? It's just emotionally like pleasing life, right? Well, guess what? Almost like subconsciously, and this all this is going to happen. The mechanism by which this happens is all subconscious. By the way, it's not really a conscientious process, although you can make it more conscientious the more you become aware of it. Awareness is like the key to understanding this mechanism. But let's say you start off with like a life of emotional pleasure. Now, what would this entail in a usual way? I would say things like friendships, friends, lovers, whatever. They're all in the domain of emotions, right? Friends, lover. I mean, to me, this is all just like companionship. These are all just like lustful desires for company, right? Companionship, emotional lust is what I'm trying to get at. If such a thing can exist, emotional lust. In fact, I really want to emphasize the emotion, so we'll call it e-lust. Okay. The idea basically being that, you started off good. You had good things. You had, good friends, good lovers, companions. You had all this, physical, emotional, mostly emotional satisfaction, although I guess, it can manifest in the physical as well in the form of like, the company of people, like the proximity. But what does the universe do? The universe will transform this into pain. It will automatically convert it into pain. But what kind of pain will it become? I think it becomes at least spiritual pain. At least that's one way to look at it. It will transform into pain, but it will be in the spiritual domain. your spirit somehow ends up suffering with spiritual pain. SPPA. Okay, and then what does this entail? This leads to something like depression. We'll say, loneliness, attachment, or rather unattachment, when you're in a room with a bunch of people but you're completely lonely, right? What other examples would be cases of like spiritual pain? Just like disconnection with the universe. No God. How about that? Just to keep it simple. You don't even feel God anymore because you've been caught up so much with all these other people. So I find that really fascinating how you can start off with pleasure and then convert this into pain. But we can go further with this. We can explore this in other ways as well. There's other examples that I would want to turn to kind of try to reinforce this idea. So let's do that. I'm going to get a marker here, make sure it's a white marker. And if it will allow me, it's still yellow for some reason. We want it to be white. There we go. Just going to erase all this. And I want to try this same system again, but let's use another example. Again, this is a thought experiment. This may not be the right answer. I'm sure it's flawed. Whatever. Let's try another kind of another thought experiment here. What if we did? What if we started off with pain? What if we started off with emotional pain? How about that? I guess we're starting off with emotion the whole time. What if we start off with emotional pain? Right? What if you're someone who had emotional pain? Okay, then what? This would have been domestic abuse. I guess it would have been emotional and physical. This would have been bad relationship with your parents. Bad parents. What else? I mean, that's probably the main two, right? High school. Right. Well, something like that. Okay. Now, how does this subconsciously transform? Well, it can transform into, say, physical pleasure. Right. And so, I think this explains to me, at least, what a thought is. And I'm not talking about thought of your mind. I'm talking about thought as in, the kind of person that just ends up fucking around, quite literally, because they need a way to find a way to convert that. So this transforms into porn. Porn stars. Okay, this is the life of a porn star, right? This is someone who is sleeping around the town, right? So it's interesting. Now, I'm not here to say what's good, what's bad, what's good. I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all can figure that out for yourselves. But I just find it interesting how the universe seems to fundamentally have this mechanism at play. And no matter who you are, it transforms one case of either pleasure or pain, depending on which kind it is, into something else. Here's another example. Let's do one more. What if we start off with say, I don't know, what would be physical pain? What would that look like? I mean, what if you were handicapped? Right? Let's say you're a handicapped person and you were just born just with a pretty damaged body, right? Or an imperfect body. I mean, all human bodies are imperfect, right? So let's see here. What would that look like? That would be physical, right? pH, and then that would be pain. All right, and the clearest example to me is handicap, right? Like you can't walk. What the fuck? You can't actually walk, right? Some I don't know, Steve Hawking's or something like that, right? Physically pain, handicap. Okay. Well, how does this manifest? I think I forgot one category in here, didn't I? I forgot emotional, physical, spiritual, and also mental. We forgot about mental, didn't we? We're going to change the color. I'm going to make sure it's a nice sharp blue. No, that's like kind of purple. I want it just to be like a regular blue. Let's just do this one. Mental. That's another domain. Well, in the case of someone like Steve Hawking's, he converted that physical pain into basically, what would it be? I would say mental pleasure. M-E pleasure. Right? So the main takeaway, and this allowed him to do like, he had the Big Bang Theory, right? The Big Bang Theory of the universe, right? Like he formulated that. I mean, quantum mechanics, black holes, hardcore science, like astrophysics. Okay, like this guy did some really intense calculations. So I just find it interesting. And chances are you have multiple mechanisms happening all simultaneously. But I just find it interesting how you can start off with either pleasure or pain. That's the main takeaway. You either start off with either pleasure or pain, and it's almost like subconsciously your entity will transform it into the opposite, right? This is the fundamental mechanism, and it goes either way. And the question is like, which way do you want it to go? I think you have a little bit of autonomy in this process. But if you're not aware of what's happening, it's naturally going to manifest. It's going to transform, So, those were 3 examples that I could think of. I found this pretty interesting. I'm sure there are more thought experiments. For anyone who does end up watching this video, please let me know if you can think of another good example and see if this makes any good sense. But I just find it interesting. I see people who have gone through so much trauma in their life, and they've converted it into some form of pleasure. And then I've seen people who have had it all to begin with, and then they eventually end up like homeless, or they end up like, I don't know, hooked on drugs or something like that, right? So it's fascinating to me that you always have, this sort of mechanism, shifting from one to the other. Right. And so that's really, I feel like that's important for people to be aware of, is that, the universe is going to make this process happen whether you like it or not. It's going to happen automatically. But if you can develop awareness, the big override, I think, would be awareness. If you develop awareness, you're actually more easily able to figure out like how to more easily navigate your outcome, So I think that's all I have for this video. Give it a like if you liked it. Comment below if you can think of any other connections there. But keep in mind the 2 areas to focus on, the 2 entities to be aware of, are the pleasure versus pain. Right? We're not talking about joy. We're not talking about anything greater. We're talking about earthly bound. All this stuff that I'm speaking of is bound to the earth. Okay, there's the earth. Okay, and here are the continents. Okay, these are all earthly bound mechanisms here in this universe. Okay, this is not going to be something that's going to happen like in your afterlife, if there's such a place. It's not going to happen in maybe the closest link that you may have is with your spirit, which I think can sort of transcend through the whole thing. Maybe the spirit is not in this. Maybe it's simply purely mental. But keep in mind, these are earthly bound. So we're talking about pleasure and pain, and then the domains, right? If these are the entities, right? If these 2 are the primary 2 entities, then you also have the domains to be aware of as well, right? The domains being, the actual mediums by which this actually manifests as a human being. It's going to be emotional, physical, mental, and perhaps spiritual. I mean, I think spiritual eventually is kind of the sum of all 3 in a way. So that's all I got. And, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all in another video. Peace out.